This show was made possible by a grant from the Jewish Women's Foundation of New York.
Welcome to Jewish Women in America, a television series that celebrates the contributions of Jewish women to U.S. society. I'm Blanche Wiesen Cook, and my guests today help pave the way for Jewish women in sports. Synchronized swimmer Jane Katz and tennis player Ellis. Welcome to you both. I am so thrilled that you are both here. These are two of my favorite people, and sports is my favorite thing. And Jane Katz teaches at John Jay College. Yay! John Jay College, our great school, and is my colleague, and Ellis, my great friend. And I'm just so excited that you are here. Somebody said as we were talking about what we were going to talk about that, you know, you're former athletes. And the thing is, they're like divas, like opera divas. There are no former athletes. An athlete is an athlete. And I'm a former athlete because I had an accident, and so I couldn't major in phys ed. But I'm not a former athlete. I'm really an athlete. And
you're an athlete forever.
You're an athlete forever.
Absolutely.
And sports is forever. And Title IX, which was so hard. I mean, some of us, including me, are old enough to remember a time when girls were told, you don't have the stamina to dribble a basketball. You can only do half court and 2 bounces, boom, boom. And then, you know, we rebelled, and we got Title IX, and everything is kind of embattled. And here you are, both of you coaches, really keeping your sports not only on the map, but popularizing your sports in the way that you have done. And so just over to you. Jane, let's start with you, because I just want to...
She's chomping at the bit to show.
I just want to say that John Jay College, our school, just to be a little chauvinist, because, you know, like, athletes are competitive. That's what it
Slightly.
is. Slightly competitive. Our school is #1, and you're the #1 coach of the year. Tell us about our John Jay swim team and how we got to be #1.
Well, as the coach of the John Jay Bloodhound Mermaids, we've been in training for several years, and this year we had a 3-way tie with College of Staten Island and Hunter, with 20 beautiful mermaids who swim fast. We call them the fast women, ages from 17 to 37.
Wow.
They're smart, they're fast, and they're fun. And we are very excited about also having the performer of the entire CUNY as one of our swimmers. So it's been a wonderful revelation. I wish I would have been able to be on a team, as we were speaking before, Eve, because there were no sports teams when I went to school. And I was a crazy lady then, and I still am, but now I have company, and that's the great part of it.
Well, let's talk about that. Eve, when you went to school, you majored at Yale, you majored in American Studies. You didn't major in phys ed.
Right. Well, you really couldn't major in phys ed at Yale, but I majored in American Studies, and I did play tennis a major portion of my time at Yale. And it was really at a time after Title IX. I was graduated in 1980, but it was a time of turmoil. And I remember when I was first applying to Yale, there had been this major event that was covered in the New York Times. So I was a senior in high school. And what happened was these women from crew had marched into the director of athletics office one day, and they had been having to change their clothes in a trailer instead of a regular locker room, but the men had the locker room. So these women marched in with a New York Times photographer who stood behind them, and they all took off they were in towels, and they took off their towels in front of this. Actually, she was a female. She was an assistant, of course, director of athletics. And all you saw in the New York Times was her expression when they were demanding that they wanted equal use of the facilities. And when I saw that picture, I thought, not that I would have come in that way, but I thought, that's where I want to go. But it was really a time that women had to keep fighting for everything they got, and they still do. And I should actually come clean, though. While I am not a former athlete, I'm still an athlete. I run, I play some tennis, etc. What I do for a living, though, is no longer coaching. So I'm coaching in a different area. I'm a financial advisor
At Smith Barney.
at Merrill Lynch.
At Merrill Lynch.
And
Sorry.
That's okay. And so it's really coaching in another area. So I'm focusing on financial planning, but it really is a matter of, and it's a matter of carrying over what I learned in sports in terms of setting goals, meeting objectives, and planning. And so I feel like I'm coaching people in a different area of their lives.
That's great. That's great. How did you get into tennis? What was your?
I initially started when my father, both of my parents played tennis, and they still play. And my father got my 3 older sisters and me interested. We used to go up to the Lord & Taylor's up the street and hit balls against the backboard, the wall there of Lord & Taylor's. This was in mainline Philadelphia. And then the tennis clubs, many of the clubs in the Philadelphia area were restricted and did not allow Jews. And so my parents, as well as many other Jewish people, built their own tennis courts. So instead of belonging to the tennis club that was 3 blocks away, we had a court. And that's really when I started and how I started.
And then you went from playing tennis on your family court and your neighbor's court.
I competed then in tournaments. So I competed first locally, and then I competed nationally, and played at Yale, and played on the pro circuit for 2 years, and then coached the U.S. men's tennis team in the Maccabiah Games in Israel in '85. We actually discovered we were at the same games.
And you're both going back to the Maccabiah Games in Israel in 2005.
Right. So I'm going as the national director of U.S. tennis for the games.
Great. And you're going?
God willing, our masters swimming team, which we started in '85 when I was there with our swimmers at that time. We had 40 people. It was great.
Jane, what is your pathway into the swimming pool? I mean, there are all these stories about you that, Jane is never out of a swimming pool. You got
we have her
married.
out for a half hour.
You only, right. I mean, there were even stories about how you spent your wedding in the swimming pool. I mean,
well, they said wear something blue, so I wore blue goggles. But my father actually nearly drowned as a teenager, and someone taught him to swim. And as an undergraduate at City College, and then a professor of electrical engineering for many years at CCNY, he was on the team then, and has continued, and still to this day, coaches swimming at the YMHA in New York. On the Lower East Side where we grew up. And we swam in a pool on Avenue C in Houston Street where people like Matt Goldstein swam. We went to school together at City too, where the Iceman was there and you could get in for a penny. And my first international swim was the Maccabiah Games almost 50 years ago. It was 57. And they came to that pool, I remember this clearly, on Avenue C in Houston, where my mother and father taught Lower East Side children for nothing, so we could use the pool and train. My brother.
Was this like a settlement house?
It was a Parks Department pool, and it was right near the Henry Street Settlement House, exactly. And I'm the oldest of 4, and my brother also swam internationally at the Maccabiah Games with Mark Spitz, and he, was a colleague and friend and coached at Yale later. So, we know the same pool and watering holes, and has continued. And my mother and father, my mother recently passed away, and may she rest in peace, was, that first woman's lib. She did everything. She raised a family, she worked, she swam, she coached, she taught. And my father and mother were my first mentors, and still and always will be.
That's really great.
Yes.
So both of you, your parents were both really defining in your athletic. My mother
Right.
was also an athlete, and my father
What's-
taught me how
what
to punch a
sport?
punching bag.
There you go.
So who gave you your mean forehand?
My main forehand, my mother. She was a great tennis player.
Well, I thought we could train and trade. This is just a little tennis goodie that we use for water fitness, and we cross-train, just as, you know, your physical fitness and physical fitness
love it.
happen. It kind of goes together.
It goes together. You mean you use that in the water to practice your tennis?
Actually, your stroke.
Stroke?
So you
And
use
your
it for the
tennis
stroke itself.
stroke. And we've done,
I
a
love it.
backhand, forehand. We can adjust the, strength of the water, etc.
That's great.
And, it's great
Well,
for
we'll-
hailing cabs, too.
It's a New Yorker.
It's a New Yorker. It's a New York thing.
It's versatile. It's really versatile. That's really great. For those people who don't know what the Maccabeah Games are, tell us what they are.
Well, I describe them as the Jewish Olympics. They take place every 4 years in Israel. And they are as much, I assume you would agree, that they are as much a cultural event as an athletic event.
Totally.
I mean, the teams do, the coaches and we as chairs, et cetera, want the best athletes as possible, but we also really want people who are going to come and understand the whole experience and take in their whole visit to Israel. It's about 3 weeks long, and while the athletes are encouraged to go and watch other sports, they're also encouraged to go and learn about Israel and meet other people.
And these are athletes from
from around the world.
all over the
I
world?
mean, 50 countries.
And 25 sports. And what's interesting is, other than the Olympic Games, it's the second largest international sports competition, likened to the Pan American Games in terms of size, magnitude, number of sports, athletes.
That's really great. So are there peace activities that go along with this in these trying times?
Hopefully.
Sport is the democratic unifying factor. I believe it can be the great equalizer for all of us, and we need that in today's times, for sure.
That's great. That's really wonderful. Let's go back to Title IX. Did you go to City? You were an undergraduate at City. Your daddy was the swim coach while you were a student?
He taught engineering. He was not the swim coach.
Okay.
And there were no women swimmers or teams. There was a basketball team, period.
Okay.
Nothing else.
But they did half court and that boom boom bounce, that
They did.
that silly little game that
Well,
they called
fortunately,
basketball.
that was, that's been our great starter and forerunner. However, as a result, many of my friends became synchronized swimmers, and we started the women's first competitive synchronized swimming club that later became a team for the East Coast Conference champions. And at the end of our City College tenure, I was selected as a member of the demonstration sport of synchronized swimming to the Olympics in '64 in Tokyo.
So you went to the Olympics of '64 in Tokyo, and this was the first time the synchronized swimming event was an Olympic event.
It was a performance sport at the
Okay.
time.
But-
20 years later, it became an Olympic event in Los Angeles.
Were you
So
there?
it was a pioneering
Okay.
effect.
Great.
And it took that long. As we know in other sports, it takes, it's
takes time.
Just like 2012 now, is vying for the Olympics in New York. It's been a process that's been ongoing for some time.
But there really is backlash against Title IX, and in a way it seems a little bit like Roe v. Wade in that these are laws. These are existing laws.
Right.
And there's this movement in this country to undo both of them. And with Title IX, there's so much of there seems to be anger on the part of men who think that they are in competition with women's teams for money instead of realizing that they are in competition with the men's football team for money.
Right.
And the fight just it keeps going on, even though it should already be settled. Right.
Right, as in there are no final victories.
Right.
I mean, it's
we thought it was
outrageous.
finished.
We thought it was finished,
Right.
just as we thought Roe v. Wade
Exactly.
created a reality. Let's pause on this, because one of the things that breaks my heart is the ending, the termination of music education in public schools and the erosion of sports education. I mean, if you go back to the good old days, quote unquote, of the 40s and 50s, when we were in competition with the world, the U.S. could do it all, there was a tremendous effort to prove, excuse me, that our children could be artistic, could have art in school, could have sports in school, could have music in school. And so we did actually have teams when I was growing up, and we had musical instruments. I was given a violin to take home. And there was real encouragement to study music and to be athletic and to do sports. And that is eroding along with this incredible challenge on Title IX. And I know, Jane, you have worked so hard to make the connection between sports and health. You have worked so hard to make sure that, you know, sports is not limited to just the very rich and privileged. What is going on here?
I think the most difficult thing is that sports is being slowly eliminated from the school programs. Today in our technological world, youngsters, you know, sit by their, you know, computers and they don't exercise. And the simplest way is to have a daily exercise or a weekly or semi-weekly, and that keeps eroding away. And it's so important. It's the mind, body, spirit. It's the sportsmanship. It's the friendship that people have that are lifelong.
Right.
And that is so very important. And particularly for women, you know, coming back to the Title IX consideration, you know, the men's basketball team has this much and, you know, the women's team is, you know,
Much less.
You know, it's
It's
separate
not
but
even.
not equal.
Right.
And I think that's something that, you know, we've both experienced.
Right.
And it's so important to raise that.
Right.
And you wouldn't have people on the street getting in trouble. You wouldn't have kids on drugs as much. I mean, it's
Right.
you know, being active.
If they had some place to go
Exactly.
and something to do.
Right.
It's interesting because my father's father was a violinist and my grandmother was the first women's pioneer, and I played second violin in school, and I did that before sports,
Right.
which was interesting,
Right.
as you mentioned.
Right.
Also, it's so important for girls to stay involved and interested in sports. There often is a kind of drop-off that once they get into middle school or junior high school that they aren't interested
Right.
anymore. I have a niece who is a fabulous tennis player and really wonderful basketball player, and she's actually already almost 5'6" as a 12-year-old, and says to me next year she plans on being, actually she's close to 5'6", I'm 5'6". She said, next year I'll be taller than you, and I intend to be 6 feet tall. And I really hope that she is, but what I really also hope is that she keeps this interest in sports, because it just is so important, and in shaping who she is, who her friends are, what she spends her time doing. And I just see it having such a wonderful effect on her.
Well, now, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. When we went to City College, it was the girls' program. They were separated. I mean, today you don't necessarily think of it that way,
Right.
but it was, you know, the women's program and the classes were separate.
Right. And I went to a Friends school,
Right.
which you would think would be different. And I really, Friends Central School in Philadelphia completely shaped who I am in a good way, I feel. However, at the time I was there was a girls' gym and a boys' gym. And you might say, well, what's the difference between a girls' gym and a boys' gym? I mean, the genitalia of a gym. At any rate, the girls' gym, to inbound a ball for basketball, it was so small you had to keep your foot up on the wall behind you, or else you were in the court.
Oh.
And that signified that you were out of bounds by having your foot up on the wall at the same time you were inbounding the pass.
That's outrageous. I mean,
It
when
was.
you think about the insults and the indignities before Title IX and how important Title IX is, both of you travel around a lot for sports. You meet a lot of people, you coach a lot of people, in addition to the coaching that you do for the fiscal future. What the spirit among girls, I mean, I remember Billie Jean King, years and years ago, said it would take 2 generations before women were equal, before women realized that they could develop muscle tone as well. I mean, I grew up at a time when women were told, you know, lift as many weights as you like, there's no possibility of muscle definition. Well, that is the silliest damn thing we've ever heard, right? As we see all of these, as we see our wonderful, you know, muscle definition. But when you think about how our generation was discouraged from taking sports seriously, and this generation is more and more encouraged, and then on top of it, the erosion. What do you, how do you deal with it?
Well, Billie Jean King, who we both know through sports and the Women's Sports Foundation, which she helped found, just turned 60, a similar age group in the 60 to 65 age group. There are many sport activities and foundations for girls and women today. They didn't exist years ago. You couldn't go to a health club years ago the way you can today. I mean, the locker rooms, just anything, just didn't exist. And it's a new world in terms of that's concerned.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Also, I was going to say just also when Martina Navratilova started to get so strong. I mean, Billie Jean King was strong and did amazing things for the whole women's movement and for all of us. But then Martina, when she physically became so strong and then made Chris Evert step it up and made everyone really, and I think beyond just tennis, made everyone realize what they could do and what they could get from it, from being so strong.
Now, both of you really work out, and you run.
Oh, I run. I run. I don't work out as hard as, I know what really working out is, because that's what I did when I trained and I competed on the pro circuit. And so I feel like those days are over, and I don't know that I can ever do that again. Maybe you probably feel differently.
But well, there are two things here. Sports for joy, which we all agree about, and sports for health, which we all have to catch up on. And you had an accident.
Yes.
And you then used your water,
therapy.
Therapy. Okay. Tell us what.
In '79, I had a terrible car accident where it was a drunk driver. That was the result that occurred, and there was nothing out there for women. But I had just started swimming Masters, which is camp for big babies for all sports. A saying for Master sports for adults is, the older I am, the faster I was. I mean, that's an ism for all sports,
like that.
or the better I was. But I started rehabilitating myself through swimming and water exercise, and that is how Swimming for Total Fitness, which has been out, for 22 years, that's an original, is still out there, and the water fitness, so you can create your own water workout, and aqua fitness, created through the exercises that I did. This didn't exist then. I would, just use a famous hand paddle.
Yeah.
And there are many other things that, exist now in the water and swim and aqua field for therapy, for runners, for other sports medicine specialists that, want to use water on a treadmill or anything else like that. And now, like everything, it's another market, it's another venue. And even cross-training with, tennis and boxing and whatnot, because it helps to, keep your sport alive. If you want to run, you want to run. If you want to play tennis, you're going to do that.
Right. And if you want to kickbox and swim, you're going to do that.
But I've always thought of swimming as being so good for you. In other words, like I run, and I ran at one marathon. I don't really think it's good for you. Swimming, I always had thought is really good for you.
Well, I think it's a lifetime sport and activity for the long haul. And with Masters, I'm in a new age group, and I won the mile this past summer in 24 minutes. Thank you,
Yeah,
which is about as fast as I run. So
now I want to know, since you compete in the Masters, do you always look forward to that next birthday so that you can keep moving up into an older age group?
That's such a great question. When you change age groups, which is what I just did, because I jumped into the 60 to 64 age group, you're the new kid on the block. You're the baby. And so that usually gives you perhaps a little edge until everyone, kind of evens out and catches up. So yes.
So it's an initial high.
It's an initial high, then you have to work through it until
Well,
the
there's
next
somebody
one.
who, I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but she just died at the age of 93, a great swimmer. And there was a picture of her in her bathing suit and goggles, like those goggles. But she was swimming until practically the day she died.
Well, Gertrude Ederle passed away. Eleanor Holm,
It was Eleanor
who I knew, and knew Gertrude Ederle as well, and Eileen Riggensole, who was from Hawaii, who was in her late 90s. This past year, we've had a lot of people like Doc Councilman, in swimming, you know, and
Right.
Eleanor, you know, recently passed, but they were late into their 80s and 90s and participated until, you know, almost their last breath,
That's fantastic.
which was great.
Well, isn't it true that swimming uses all the muscle, the whole muscle coordination of the body, everything is in play in the pool?
Well, it's gentle on your joints, and I think that's part of it. And also, it's not right-handed or upper body or, you know, lower body. So it can be a balancing. But if you like another sport, you can always add your own water workout, you know, an aquafit into it.
And
you're
that's in your
swimming.
book. If we get Jane Katz's Swimming for Fitness, folks can
Well,
read in what's suitable for them so they can get a full body workout in the pool.
this is great.
What is the story about you and your husband swimming on your wedding day in the pool with you? Did you go in with your wedding dress?
It was after, but they said wear something blue. So I wore blue goggles, and I thought I'd bring a pair of goggles for you guys too. These are a miniature set of the blue goggles.
Oh, that's
How
great.
So you
wonderful.
have your
Thank you,
goggles.
Jane.
Oh, wonderful. On a keychain.
On a keychain,
That's
splish
great.
splash.
Wonderful.
And
I'll
we're
cherish
just
this.
silly. They asked what our wedding song would be, you know, and I said Splish Splash. That was it. And somebody-
That's wonderful. Now, both
love
of
it.
you are award-winning and champion medalists in your sports. I just want to, we have very little time left, but there is something about competition. Competition has gotten a very bad rap. I like competition. I mean, gracious competition. We shouldn't be mean to each other. But still, there is something about doing your personal best and then beating somebody and winning. How is competition for you? What
Well,
is
mine
it
is a
that-
different kind of competition. What I do for clients is I feel like I'm recruiting, just the way a coach would recruit, and I'm recruiting professional money managers. Let me tell you, when I put together the right team of money managers for clients, that's winning. I mean, it's a wonderful high, and I feel like what I did in coaching is pulling together the right players. So I feel like I still have that high.
Absolutely. I think it's your self-worth and well-being and your confidence in yourself. You know, in swimming, it's the roar of the crowd, the smell of the chlorine, or vice versa. But, you know, it's you and your confidence about
Right.
yourself.
And
Right.
I
Doing
hope
best.
everybody gets the right coach and goes out there and tries to perfect their personal best. And we are out of time, and I want to thank you so much, Jane Katz and Eve Ellis, for sharing your wonderful, remarkable stories with us for Jewish Women in America. I'm Blanche Wiesen Cook. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, da, 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 da.